Hey, good morning, everybody. Wow, that'll wake you up on a Saturday morning, won't it? Hey, welcome. I hope your holidays were great and spend some time with the family and set some goals and get on track for next year. I hope that you have intentionally worked on what your year is going to look like for you and the direction that you're going to go in. We're going to take a little twist here this morning. This multifamily unplugged. We're here every Saturday morning. And today we're going to talk about self-storage. My guest, Tom Dunkel, he's from Wayne, Pennsylvania, is in the self-storage business. We're going to hear about his story, but he's with Belrose Storage Group. And let me bring Tom in. Hey, Happy New Year.
Hey, Mike. Happy New Year to you. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. How were your holidays?
They're super. Got to spend some time with the kids and play a little golf, hang out with some friends. It was a good time. How was yours? Hope it was good.
Yeah, it was good. Had a great time, a lot of family and some downtime, much needed downtime. That's for sure. It was crazy end of the year. So
yes, got to recharge. Got to recharge the batteries for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, well, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. It's good to meet you. A lot of times I do these podcasts. It's the first time I get to meet somebody. So my assistant, Rain, does a really good job of screening and making sure that we have good guests. And when we saw your bio come across, I said, I really want to talk to this guy. I want to, look at self-storage a little more, maybe learn about it. And I know my listeners are open to that too and alternatives, because that's just one of those asset classes inside that multifamily bucket, The difference is you don't have toilets and loud tenants you need to deal with. So, hey, before we get going though and talk about that, one question I always ask my guests when I kick my show off is in one word. What's one word that best describes you personally and professionally?
That's a tough one, Mike. I'd have to go with contrarian.
Okay.
I tend to zig when others are zagging. I tend to look for the opportunities that have been overlooked by others, and I think it's served me pretty well over the years. Sometimes it can be challenging to be the contrarian, but I guess I just sort of have that independent streak in me that kind of pushes me in that direction. Everyone's wired differently, but I guess that's how I'm wired.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and here, I just want to comment on that real quick. Warren Buffett has said for years, when everybody's running in fear, run towards the fear, right? Run towards what everybody's running from. Is that kind of your belief?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just trying to sift through the noise and get to those opportunities that maybe others are overlooking or might be fearful of. So like right now is a good example, right? It's been a tough year in multifamily. It's been a tough year in self-storage. Interest rates have gone way up, made financing deals more challenging, but we're still, pedal to the metal, going ahead full steam and just still being smart and disciplined. But we've been through this kind of market before. I've been doing this kind of thing since 2006. And even before that, I was in investment banking before when the whole internet bubble burst. So I've been through multiple kind of bubble and rocky periods. So, you just got to keep grinding.
Yeah, that's for sure. We got a couple hundred units closed in 2023, and it was no easy task. That's for sure.
That's right.
And it's but only the strong survive, right? I always say, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. So
that's right. Funny kind of unrelated story just came to mind, Mike, which is I used to be a scout dad. My son came up in Boy Scouts, became an Eagle Scout. And I remember we were out, used to do a lot of backpacking, right? So we were out with the group doing some backpacking, and we got lost. And we had to get back to our camp. And so it was starting to get dark. And, when you get lost, of course, you're tacking on a lot of extra miles. You're still carrying your pack. And my friend, Chris, who's, he's a contractor. He's like a carpenter guy. So, just kind of a tough guy. And we're sitting there by this stream, just kind of catching our breath for a minute. And I'm just like, oh man, we're lost, we've kind of figured out how to get back, but we had gone like the wrong direction. We're going to have to really, hustle to and go a long way in a short period of time before it got dark. And he says to me, what are you going to do? Quit? I was like, hey, you can't quit, right? What am I going to do? Freeze out here in the woods by myself? So yeah, we hustled back, got to camp. But it just always stuck with me. And of course, it's applicable to business, especially during tough times. It's what are you going to do? Quit? You just got to keep going.
What a great story. And it's so true. What are you going to do? Quit. And when you think about it, I mean, doing what you do, doing what I do, if either one of us were to quit because of us maybe not wanting to, move forward or things got tough, think about the people that affects. Right.
Sure.
I mean, it's not just about us, but, you might have business partners, you might have private investors, you've got tenants, you've got vendors, there's a lot of people that get affected if you quit. So, it's like I look at deals today and I say, boy, if getting this done, no matter how hard it is, it's not just about me getting it done. I'm working for all these people today.
That's right. 100%. Yeah. We're always looking out for the best interests of our investors. And, sometimes that means making hard choices, maybe passing on deals because they're just not going to fit and be a good long-term decision. So yeah, it's definitely challenging, especially, here at Belrose Storage Group, we're not a big company. We call ourselves small but mighty, but we do have 8 people, and those are just the full-time people. Then we have other virtual assistants and contractors and consultants that we work with. And of course, we have an office that we have to rent, and insurance and salaries and healthcare. So we've got all of that. So yeah, you're spot on. You can't just fold up your tent and head out.
Sure. So listen, let's do this. Why don't you talk about your background a little bit, your history, and how Belrose Storage came to be?
Yeah, sure. Well, I started out in corporate America after business school. I found myself in a great position. I was with an aerospace company that was growing aggressively through acquisition. And I was a financial analyst there. And so I got to interact because of my position. I was interacting with the CEO and the CFO and our corporate development team and our private equity investors and our lenders and all that stuff. So I cut my teeth pretty early on doing deals, right? And structuring deals, getting the debt together, getting the equity together, and then also getting the team together and getting the plan together and doing the integration and all those kinds of things. So that was a great run. And man, I worked with some incredible people, some Harvard MBAs, Wharton MBAs, Chicago MBAs, worked with some former retired fighter pilots and astronauts. So if anyone out there is interested in learning who the astronauts, I actually had lunch with 2 astronauts that are pretty famous. So if you want to hear about that lunch, reach out to me through belrosestorategroup.com. I'd love to share that story with you. But so anyway, so kind of was doing mergers and acquisitions. We did over $1 billion worth of deals, and then decided to kind of move on from that position and go into investment banking, which I touched on earlier. Went into technology investment banking in the early 2000s, which, that was just such a hot and heavy industry, and just, crazy amounts of money being thrown around at all these crazy internet, website ideas and capturing eyeballs. And honestly, it never really made a whole lot of sense to me, because I'm sitting in these meetings, listening to these pitches, and I'm trying to figure out how this company makes money, right? You have to make money, right? But a lot of them just were able to attract these huge amount of dollars to fund these losses. And to me, I just didn't get it. And so then of course the internet bubble burst, and I had to, kind of scramble after that, especially, having at that time I had a 2-year-old at home. And when our investment banking firm kind of blew up, so kind of had to figure out my way forward there. Started doing some consulting, ended up with Nutrisystem, actually, the weight loss company.
Sure.
Because when I joined them, they were looking at growing in some adjacent health related markets. But while I was there, the core business took off like crazy. And so that it just, required all hands on deck just to manage the growth of that business, which I'm not really an internal operations guy. So it ended up not being a great fit. So that's when I left corporate America in 2006 to start my real estate empire. And of course, 2006 wasn't the best time to go and do that. So here I had, accumulated a little war chest of cash to kind of go out and, launch my entrepreneurial career. And of course, proceeded to get my butt kicked pretty good over those next few years, even though I had a, great education, great background. I just, being an entrepreneur is something different, right? Especially when you're, having to go through a tough time like the Great Recession, which of course was historic. So learned a lot of hard lessons then, but then I also learned, like we discussed earlier, Mike, about how to find those opportunities that might be off the beaten path a little bit. So that's when I discovered distressed mortgage notes. And so distressed mortgage notes are these defaulted loans that are kind of sold out into the world, and investors can actually buy these, and you can get pretty high yielding returns secured by real estate, because you're essentially stepping in the shoes of the bank, right? And I know you're asking about storage. I'm getting there in a second, I promise. But so that business is great, and we've done really well with that business. We've generated over $53 million of revenue in our distressed mortgage debt business over the years. But the problem with it is it's very unpredictable. It's very challenging, and like you mentioned in your intro, Mike, you need to set goals, right, for the year. But with distressed mortgage debt, it was really hard to do that, because we're really at the whim of the big banks. When they're ready to sell, they'll sell. If they're not ready to sell, they're not going to sell. So it left us in a position of, not being able to plan, not really being able to set goals. So we started looking around for industries, asset classes where we could do that. And we looked at multifamily, we looked at hard money lending, but we settled on self-storage. I'd be happy to get into the reasons later, reasons why later. But self-storage has been a great asset class for us. We've started really looking at it in like 2017, 2018. We put our team together and our plan together and our goals together in 2019. And that gave us the ability and the confidence to then go out and acquire our first facility in 2020. So we've since acquired 14 facilities, over $41 million of acquisitions, over 4,000 units. And so we've been able to, do that with the help of our investor partners, because we do syndications. And so it's been a great run, and we're learning a lot, and we're building out a great team here at Belrose Storage Group.
Nice. Good for you. Sounds like a great journey. And, I know along the way you tend to learn a lot. So why self-storage? What's your attraction to that?
Sure. Yeah. So there's really three. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but if I had to boil it down to three, it would be number one is self-storage for over 40 years has been an extremely steady asset class. So for over 40 years, the occupancy rate at self-storage facilities around the country has kind of gently meandered between about 80 and 90%. So if you think about that, over 40 years, right, we've had lots of booms, we've had busts, we've had everywhere in between. But self-storage just maintains that occupancy level, which means it's steady, it's generating revenue, and so it has that resilience in bad times, and it has that growth potential in good times. And if you think about it, if it's good, it happens that way because in good times, right, people are buying their kayaks, they're buying their mountain bikes, they're buying that extra furniture, but they don't want to get rid of the old stuff, so they store it, right? But in down times, you have death, divorce, and dislocation, and downsizing, and all those kinds of things, right? Is when people actually need storage. So if there's any kind of disruption in their lives, they're going to need to store stuff, and whether they're combining households, or like in the case of COVID, right? Everyone had their spare bedroom for their guests that were coming over. Well, guess what? Now they had to take that spare bedroom and turn it into a home office.
Yeah.
So they stored their furniture for that. So that's the first reason why we like self-storage. Number two is it's becoming more and more mainstream. It's becoming more and more adopted. So whereas a few years back, maybe 8% of households used self-storage, these days it's like 11.5 going on 12% of households are using self-storage. And some measures out there are even have that number higher. But I know, maybe going from 8 to 11 or 12% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider there's 120 million households in the United States, every 1% move is 1.2 million new self-storage customers, and there's just not enough of them out there. So it keeps demand high, and it's creating more demand as the millennials come on board, and their housing kind of philosophy and strategy is much more minimalistic, but they still want their goodies, so they use storage.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You made an interesting comment. There's just not enough of them out there. You mean self-storage? There's not enough self-storage out there?
That's right. Of course, it varies market to market, Mike, but
Okay.
You're probably seeing the same thing with multifamily, right? We have a housing crisis in our country where there's just not enough housing for people, and that spills over into storage as well. There's typically in a market, we go into markets all the time where every facility, like within a 5 or 10 mile radius, is full, and they just don't have enough.
Yeah, interesting. Good for you. And then what was number 3?
Yeah, so the third one is.
Are you ready to skyrocket your investment portfolio and leave a legacy? Are you tired of inconsistent returns received in the stock market? Do you think that it may be time you take a look at alternative investment options? Passive investing in multifamily real estate could just be that option for you. With no tenants, trash, or toilets to take care of, but providing a solid return on an annual basis that outperforms traditional investing, including monthly and quarterly returns along the way. These lower risk, secure assets are a sure hedge against inflation. If you want to learn more about these types of opportunities, you can email me directly for a 15-minute consultation to see if you qualify. Just email me at mike@mikemorawski.com.
Self-storage is arguably the safest asset class, commercial asset class out there. And the reason I say that is because if you look at default rates on different asset classes, right? So like office recently has had a high default rate. Hotels have high default rate. Strip centers and retail, a pretty high default rate. Multifamily is solid. Multifamily does not have a very high default rate, but self-storage doesn't even show up on the chart. It's basically zero. And I think the big reason for that, Mike, is because it doesn't cost a lot of money to run a self-storage facility. So when $100 of rent comes in to a self-storage facility, we can pay our taxes, our insurance, our repairs and maintenance, our personnel, our utilities, et cetera. That'll cost us maybe 30 or 40 cents out of every $30 or $40 out of every 100. So that's going to leave a nice cushion for our net operating income to cover our debt and pay a nice dividend to our investors. Other asset classes are the reverse of that, right? $100 of rent comes in. It's going to cost $60, $65, $70 to cover all of those operating expenses, which leaves less to pay the debt and pay the investors. So that's one of the reasons I think self-storage has been so safe.
Yeah, interesting. Good for you. How about, so let's talk about, one of the things we look at in multifamily is your buy box, right? What exactly you look for. How about in self-storage? What's your buy box like? And, so 2-part question, markets. What markets do you like and why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Great question. And this is where self-storage and multifamily overlap quite a bit. because we're looking for the similar things with multifamily, right? You're looking for a solid market as far as population. Hopefully it's growing. And what we look for, Mike, is what we call kind of the Goldilocks scenario. We don't want the market to be growing too fast, because that's going to attract like the bigger self-storage investment companies, the big real estate investment trusts that you've heard of, Public Storage, Extra Space, et cetera. So they're going to come in and they're going to suck up all the demand in those really fast growing markets. But of course, we also don't want it too slow or a declining kind of market either. We like that kind of Goldilocks middle area. And similarly, we're looking at household income. We're looking at poverty rates. We're also looking at what are the commercial influences going on in that area? Are there infrastructure investments being made in new highways or new off ramps or new retail corridors where big grocery stores going in or something like that? Because that's going to indicate to us that that population is going to be growing there, and which of course is going to increase demand for self-storage. And so those are some of the things we look at, and because of those things that we're looking at, it's really kind of driving us to kind of the Southeast and the South, and a little bit into the Midwest. We're starting to look at deals too, because generally speaking, right, folks are moving out of the Northeast up where we are, and more into the Southeast and the South. So that's where we're seeing the markets that are attractive for self-storage. Interesting.
And it's kind of funny because those are the markets I look into, right, for multifamily. So,
right.
Do you think does self-storage? Do you think set the stage for multifamily, or do you think self-storage is coming in after multifamily? So, we talked about the same markets.
Yeah.
So, are you there before I'm there as an owner operator, or are you there after me?
That's a great question. I would say after, because you're going to have your multifamily building there, right? That's going to attract the population, and then they're going to need self-storage. But they do go kind of hand in hand in that regard. So I would say after, but not too far after. Yeah. Maybe at the same time.
Yeah, interesting. It's kind of funny. And years ago, I remember hearing an analogy about that, and it's like, when an ape learned how to peel a banana, they were on one island out in the South Pacific, but on the other side of the world, on another island, another ape was doing it. And they never communicated or talked, and it's kind of funny how those things happen in life,
That's right.
When you look at self-storage, are you looking at price, at unit mix? Are you looking at cap rates? How are you picking the deal?
Yeah, great question. So we're generally looking for facilities that are at least 20,000 square feet. And if they are on the smaller end of the scale, we prefer to have some room to expand. So some extra land that's there that hasn't been expanded on yet. So we're looking at that. And we, again, this kind of goes back to my background in private equity and mergers and acquisitions. Is I'm kind of the spreadsheet nerd. And so we build out the spreadsheets, looking at our current unit mix, our current rates that are being charged in the market as compared to the facility that we're acquiring. As a lot of times, and you probably see this in multifamily as well, a mom and pop operator is going to have lower rates generally than a professionally run operation. And so when we look at forecasting out our revenue and our net operating income, we're looking at how we can come in with our professional management team and really leverage that and turn around that facility to generate great returns for our investors.
Yeah. What types of returns do you tend to look for? So, and do you pay the preferred return on those? How does that work on the private equity side?
Yeah. So we're looking for, we actually have two classes of shares typically in our offerings. So the first one we called our preferred equity. And so that's going to be geared more towards folks that are looking for income, steadier income, and they're less concerned about a growth or an equity kicker on the back end, right? So that's typically structured with a 9% current pay, which is cumulative. So early on in the project, sometimes it takes us a little while to get the operations to a level where we can pay the full 9%, but that's cumulative, so it would be made up later. And then they get a small piece of the net profit at the end. So that's giving them kind of a 10, 11, 12% overall annualized return. And then our Class B is what we call our common equity. And so that's for investors that are looking for cash flow, but growth is more important to them. So that has a smaller preferred return, typically in the 5-6% range. But that can increase over time as the operations, as our value add strategies kick in and the operation starts throwing off more cash flow. So it might start out at 5 or 6, but by year 3, 4, or 5, it might be up to double digits. And so then when we exit that property and we do our profit split, those common investors are looking at overall annualized returns in the mid to high teens.
And are all your deals for accredited or non-accredited investors? Or?
Yeah, so we only work with accredited investors. So we're doing 506C offerings.
Okay, great. And how long do you typically hold those deals for?
So yeah, our plain vanilla value add deal. So if we're buying an existing facility and it's pretty straightforward, we can be out of that property in 2 to 3 years. If there is an expansion component or conversion component or something like that, that's going to elongate that hold time. So that'll be more like a 4 to 5 year hold. And so for those deals, we're targeting higher returns because of that, so that our investors can be compensated for that extra time, which is extra risk.
Here's an interesting question. If people are looking for cash flow today and they really want, that preferred return, does it not make sense to be in a deal long term, 10 years, 12 years? Or does it not? Is there a life expectancy with depreciation in that says we should get out now?
Yeah, it's a good question, and of course, there's many different strategies out there about how to play this commercial real estate game. Our philosophy here at Belrose Storage Group is we want to create a lot of value in as short a period of time as we can, and then exit that facility and take those earnings and compound it into the next deal so that we can then create value in a lot of value in a short period of time too. And so we get that compounding effect. But sure, there are investors out there who would prefer, and I've had investors tell me this too, like they say, hey, I really like what you're doing, but, I'd prefer to have a longer term horizon because, I really just want to clip the coupons. Maybe they're retired or near retirement, or they're just really looking for that passive income. And, they do, of course, they'll get the benefit of depreciation over time. And frankly, that's something that we don't get the full benefit of because we're getting in and out of the properties in a shorter period of time.
Sure.
So there's different ways to play it. And as an investor myself, right, I've been investing as a passive investor in multifamily deals since 2013. And so I prefer to have those deals take a little longer because, when I get my money back, right now I have to figure out what I'm going to do with it. I have that reinvestment risk. So yeah, like anything else, right? I think you want different kinds of investments in your portfolio. So if you're looking for cash flow, go for those longer term cash flow deals. If you're looking more for growth, maybe you're looking at shorter term growth deals where you can then compound over time. Every investor is different.
Yeah, for sure. So, everybody or most people, I'm sure, have seen the show Storage Wars. You ever auction stuff off or find anything good in, abandoned units?
Yeah. Mike, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble out there, but Storage Wars, like a lot of those shows, they're made for TV, right? They're made to entertain. Our auction process is very unentertaining.
So we're not bringing a TV cruise out.
Yeah, there's no TV crews. Basically, if our tenant goes delinquent, and actually this is another benefit to self-storage as compared to multifamily, is our eviction moratoriums and such that happened during COVID did not apply to self-storage because, of course, we're not housing people. So when our customer gets to 61 days past due, they get a notice that their stuff's getting auctioned. And it's it's a very tight, very clean process. So the manager will go in and take pictures of the items in the unit, and they get posted to a website. And there are people out there who buy this stuff. So we have an auction on the auction website. So there's bidding, and then the cool thing, this is another big benefit, is when whoever wins the auction, they have 72 hours to come and get the stuff out of the unit. So they're doing our clean out for us, which is huge, right? Because then if they come in the morning and they clean out all the stuff, our manager can go in with a broom, sweep it out, and that unit can be up for rent later that afternoon, which of course in multifamily, the turnaround process is much more involved and much more lengthy. So it's another kind of thing that we really like about self-storage.
Sure. Multifamily, paint, clean the carpet, clean the refrigerator,
Yeah. So maybe swap out the Formica for granite or upgrade the lighting package, all those kinds of things. Great. And then you definitely get a bang for your buck later on, but you could have a unit down for a couple months, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
How about your and just for want to talk a little bit about your evaluation process. Multifamily, I take the rents, I take the other income, I pull my vacancy out. And is it the same process in self-storage? Are you doing the same, income in, expense out type of evaluation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's ultimately what we're doing, is projecting out the revenue and the expenses. And we're doing our good old, finance 101 discounted cash flow analysis to see if we can implement our value add strategies. Is it gonna generate a return that we think will be attractive? And if so, we'll make an offer. If not, we won't. Well, we'll make an offer, but it might not be. We don't really care about the guidance, right, from the broker,
right? And
that's again kind of from my discipline and training from back in my earlier days. But and I'm sure you've gotten involved in this too, Mike, in multifamily, when the broker comes back to you and says, well, you need to sharpen your pencil. We've got multiple bids, blah, blah. Our answer is always the same. Hey, we gave you our best and final in our first offer. And unless you can tell us something that we missed in our analysis, then, this is our number.
So when you're in a multiple bidding war like that, what gets you noticed the most? Is it experience? Is it certainty of close? What is it?
Yeah, well, first of all, we try not to put ourselves in those auction situations. We do find most of our deals off market, but we have purchased a couple of properties that were on market, and yeah, you hit the nail on the head. When we submit our LOI, our letter of intent, we go through all the terms of our offer, but at the end, we also say, hey, we bought this many facilities, and this is how we're capitalized, and this is our experience. And that does seem to help get our offer noticed.
Yeah, nice. What's it like raising capital today for you?
It's tough. Raising capital right now is tough, Mike. No way to sugarcoat it. I mean, with rates, going up and inflation and, wars and all that, kind of thing. There's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world. So I think a lot of investors are just sitting on the sideline, right? A confused or a scared mind is just going to say no, and they're just going to hunker down and stuff their cash in their mattress or something. So yeah, it's definitely been challenging. But thankfully, we have investors who've been with us over the years, and we're adding to that every day. but they come to appreciate our discipline and our transparency. And even though, we were talking earlier about, being contrarian and kind of facing your fears, right? I think the worst thing someone can do right now is sit on cash, because it's just, declining in value every day. And so you can't sit on it. You got to put it to work somewhere. And so, just like any smart investor out there, right? You need to, make your placements, different asset classes, different geographies. I mean, that's true diversification, right?
Right.
It's not, large cap, mid cap, small cap. That's not true diversification. So yeah, we just encourage our investors to just kind of stick with us and trust our process, and then we encourage them too to look at other asset classes, because of course, we don't want everyone to just dump all their money into self-storage, right? That wouldn't be smart, because at the end of the day, we're investors as well. So like I said, I invest personally in multifamily. I still do some private lending and all those kinds of things. So I'm diversified myself. We just happen to have built a company around self-storage.
Sure. Well, if you're ever looking for any multifamily stuff, we have a couple of good value add deals that we're working on right now. So,
okay.
Hey, listen, been great having you here. What are your plans for the new year here, and business growth?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, we're still we're still out there, battling every day. Our goal is to buy at least $30 million worth of storage in 2024. We're hoping for more than that, but there's some exciting niches out there within the self-storage niche that we're looking to really take advantage of. One is contractor storage. So there are contractors out there that need space to store their equipment, their trucks, their materials. And so we're looking at getting more into that marketplace, which will help to mitigate the risk that we have of having too many residential customers, because that's been one thing that's hurt self-storage in 2023 was when the residential transactions go down, that means that, like we were talking earlier, that whole disruption and the moving that generates demand for storage. So that went down, which is why across the industry, occupancy and rates were pretty soft in 2023. So we're looking to diversify into more commercial and business applications for storage, and then also boat and RV or some other niches within storage that we're looking at taking advantage of in 2024 and beyond.
Nice, good for you. Well, I wish you good luck in the new year. Hope it's prosperous for you and your partners. And Tom, how do people get a hold of you if they want to connect?
Yeah, Mike, this has been great. I really appreciate the time. You can find me and our team at belrosestoragegroup.com, BELROSE storagegroup.com. And I'll just challenge the listeners out there. If you really want to get in touch with me, I'll give you my personal cell phone number. You can shoot me a text and we can get on the phone, which is 610-761-8940. So reach out. Love to talk to you about self-storage or alternative investing, whatever you'd like to talk about.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. I am going to move you out and say goodbye to everybody. And if you hang out with me in the back room for a minute, it'd be great.
Sure.
Thanks,
everybody.
Hey, everybody. That was a great interview today. I always say when you explore something new, you're going to learn a little bit something more, right? And self-storage is, can be intriguing. It's a great complement to multifamily and multifamily investing. And, like Tom said, it's a great diversification, right? So diversify within asset classes a little bit. And I love what he said about mid-cap and funds, because that's not diversification really, because it's true asset class diversification, multifamily self-storage. So, hey, I wish you again a happy new year. I'm glad you were here this morning. If you're new to this show, we're here every Saturday at 9:00 talking about multifamily or some facet, bringing you some good nuggets and some information to help grow your business. If I can help at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube or join our Facebook community at Multifamily Unplugged. and continually being updated about speakers like Tom, who we had on today, talking about self-storage, or other multifamily investors, and learning as much as you can, but taking action.